You said you struggle with arthritis. And I remember when I was in grad school, I had a colleague who also struggled with arthritis. And it brings awareness to invisible diseases. How are you working through this as an adult right now? Do you perform at all, or do you primarily teach working on your online business? Or in the past, how have you guided students to prevent injuries?
Great question. So this is something that's been, I would say, a lifelong exploration for me. As I get older and less flexible too, I'm learning more and more techniques. But I talk to my students, especially my adult students, about doing other physical things like yoga specifically or Pilates just to build your body awareness because as adults, especially, we tend to be really tense when we play and we bring more anxiety to our playing, more anxiety to our learning that can cause stress and tension that will obviously, what's the word I'm looking
More
for?
pressure.
Worsen. Yes, and worsen any pre-existing things that you might have because a lot of adults, especially once you hit a certain age, do struggle with some sort of inflammation or arthritis or just previous injuries from sports, and you don't want to make those any worse. So I talk a lot about bringing relaxation and techniques into your general life in general so that you can build that body awareness that will translate into your violin playing. I also give very specific like warm-ups and stretches and talk about doing lots of whole tones and scales to warm up and just really focus on what it feels like and what your body is doing versus just diving into a piece and trying to force the notes and the rhythms and not paying attention to what your body's doing.
So suggesting like a proper warm up because of the age and we have crippling bones. I know for me, like I was playing Mozart's Coronation Mass in C major the other day, and there's like this credo section. If anyone's listening, you know what I'm talking about. If you're familiar with that mass, that credo section is just a bunch of 16th notes, kind of like Schumann's scherzo from his second symphony. It's just like a bunch of running 16th notes nonstop. And I definitely felt some pain in my left hand. And I'm like, I'm not a young buck anymore. I have to warm up. I really have to warm up, especially it was in a church and it was really cold. So I really, really resonate with you on that with warming up. I think there is a plethora of resources out there for warm up exercises. I know I have my personal YouTube channel, so I'll leave links down in the description below for different warm up exercises that you can do through YouTube. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation talking about andragogy because andragogy is very different than pedagogy. Andragogy is the ability to teach adults. What are some of the differences that you have found teaching kids versus teaching adults? What are your observations?
So I kind of already touched on one of the biggest ones that I've observed, which is the mental state that with the way kids approach learning something new versus adults. I mean, some kids do bring anxiety to learning, but a lot of times, especially the young ones, they're not very fearful. They will come in and they will be like, "Yeah, this is awesome. I'm so excited." And it won't be till a few weeks later that they're like, "Oh, this is harder than I thought." And you got to give them a little pep talk, get them over that hump, and they can keep going. Adults will come in and they're like super apologetic. They're like, I sound terrible. Please don't mind
I
me.
noticed that too. Why is that? Why do you think that is? They're always like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I have this one student who's always like, "Eric, I'm sorry. I didn't practice until today. I'm sorry."
Well, I,
Because I feel like there is this apology that needs to be said because they don't want to waste your time,
yes.
right? Because they understand the value of our time. While kids don't really know that. They're just there for a violin lesson to make it fun, but they understand that they're paying for something and they want to make sure they get the best value out of you and they feel guilty.
Yes. I was going to say, I think it's twofold. I have found that, yes, they are very aware of the fact that they're paying you, but so they don't want to waste their own time. They don't want to waste your time. And I heard that a lot. So I actually worked with one of my in-person adult students when creating this course, and that was something she said was, I don't like wasting your time. Um, so that's part of it. The other part, I think, is I found that the types of people who are drawn to learning the violin are very perfectionistic and they hold themselves to a very high standard. And I don't know why that is. I just find that that's kind of a common theme, is that people who are drawn to learning instruments, violin specifically, have a very high standard for what they think they should be at. And it's not always realistic. Um, and they have a love for it. So they want to push themselves for that level that they think they should be at. And when they don't reach it, they become self-critical.
Can I share with you a really funny story? In grad school, I was approached by this one, maybe computer science or some kind of engineering student. And this student went through the music department of my graduate school, and then of course go to the grad TAs, whoever wants to accept the student or whatever. So I have a meeting with the student, and very ambitious person. Has not touched the violin once. I have a meeting with him because we grab a coffee because we're both students, we're both on campus. And I go, well, what are your goals? I'm like, I want to be like Itzhak Perlman. I'm like, dude, I can't do that for you, man. And he goes, okay, well, can you be more specific? He goes, you know, after watching Itzhak Perlman's documentary, I really see the value of the first teacher being the most important teacher. Itzhak Perlman had a very successful career because he had really good teachers along the way. I'm like, okay, first of all, I can be your teacher, but you're not gonna be playing Paganini Caprices anytime soon. I'll be upfront with you about that. Right. And then I told him just straight up front, look, this is the time that I have. This is the value that I can provide. This is the series of steps on how to get to just holding a violin. I think that we should start there. And then we can discuss about maybe doing something a little bit more advanced, like in 5 or 10 years. Right. And then he goes, okay, all right, fine. I'll send an email. So I responded back. It's like, okay, I'm just reaching out if you've made a decision, because I had some rehearsals that line up with a potential scheduling with him. He's like, unfortunately, I'm not going to be pursuing violin lessons with you because of whatever reason. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Everybody, time is such a finite thing, especially with adults. Most adult learners, from my experience, but maybe you can comment on this as well, that you have very similar schedule, 9 to 5, and then they also have busy lives. They have a social life, they have families to take care of, they have money, or some people are retired, and that's the struggle, just trying to find that really consistent time. And you're providing a solution where you can do online courses at your own pace, at your own time.